"We need a mother," the rancher's daughter said. Then they reached for the Apache woman in chains. The sun hung high in the sky, burning the earth with its relentless heat. The Dawson Ranch lay in the middle of the wide Arizona plains, surrounded by dusty hills that rolled endlessly into the distance. The land was harsh, dry, and sometimes cruel, but it had been the Dawson family's home for generations. Now, without Mrs. Dawson, the house felt emptier than ever. The morning had started quietly, the kind of quiet that made everything feel sharper. The creak of the wooden porch underfoot, the distant crow of a rooster, the wind whispering through the sparse trees. Mr. Dawson, a tall, sturdy man with calloused hands and sun-weathered skin, moved slowly across the yard, checking on the fences and water troughs. He had been trying to hold the ranch together ever since his wife's sudden passing. His heart ached in ways he didn't know how to name, but he kept himself busy. Work was easier than grief. Inside the house, 3 girls moved like shadows in the half-light of the kitchen. Clara, the eldest at 16, had taken on her mother's role without ever being asked. She made breakfast, swept the floors, and tried to keep her younger sisters in line. Her hair, usually a bright auburn in the sun, fell across her forehead as she leaned over a pan of eggs, the smell of cooking filling the small room. She carried herself with a careful balance of authority and gentleness, aware that her sisters relied on her more than she wanted to admit. Lucy, the middle child, was 12, full of curiosity and endless questions. She darted around the kitchen like a bird, helping as best she could, though her energy often left more mess than order. Her dark eyes sparkled as she peeked out the window toward the hills, imagining adventures that stretched beyond the ranch, beyond the plains, beyond the world she knew. And then there was little May, the youngest at 8, with golden curls that bounced whenever she ran. She followed her sisters everywhere, her tiny hands grasping at Clara's apron or Lucy's sleeve, as if afraid she might be left behind. May had learned early that life on the ranch was a place of work and responsibility, but she still found time to laugh and play with whatever she could find: a stick, a stone, or a stray kitten that wandered too close to the house. The girls had grown up quickly after their mother's death, learning to shoulder responsibilities that once seemed too heavy for their small frames. Yet even with all the work, something was missing. There were moments, quiet and lingering, when Clara would sit by the window and imagine her mother in the garden, humming softly as she tended the flowers. Lucy would pick up a book and wish her mother were there to read with her. And May, with her tiny hands clasped, would sometimes whisper to the empty room, asking when she could see her mother again. That morning, the sound of hooves clattering against the dirt broke the usual stillness. The girls froze, glancing at each other with wide eyes. Clara wiped her hands on her apron and moved to the door, peering out cautiously. In the distance, a column of smoke rose into the pale blue sky. At first, it looked like a trick of the sun, but then they saw movement. Horses, riders, and the unmistakable figure of soldiers escorting someone between them. "Who could that be?" Lucy asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara didn't answer immediately. Her heart beat faster as she watched the riders approach. The soldiers wore the standard military uniforms, and the figure between them was bound, her hands tied in front and her head held low. Something about the way she moved, the way her eyes flicked around, made Clara's chest tighten. There was fear, yes, but also a strength that seemed to refuse defeat. May, sensing her sister's tension, tugged at Clara's sleeve. "Is she...
hurt?" she asked in a small, shaky voice. Clara shook her head.
"I don't know, May. We just watch for now." The soldiers came closer, their boots raising clouds of dust that settled on the dry ground and clung to the girl's skin. The bound woman walked between them with careful, measured steps. Her dark hair fell across her face, partially hiding her expression, but Clara noticed her eyes, sharp, alert, and unyielding. They were eyes that had seen hardship, yet refused to break. For reasons she couldn't explain, Clara felt a tug at her heart. Something inside her whispered that this woman was important. Lucy and May, too, felt it, an unspoken connection, as if their lives were about to change forever. When the soldiers stopped near the edge of the Dawson property, Mr. Dawson stepped forward cautiously. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice firm but wary. The officer, a man with a stern face and tired eyes, spat into the dust. "We're transporting this woman. She was captured during the Apache conflicts. She's not to be harmed or freed. You will not interfere." Clara's stomach twisted. She didn't understand the politics or the reasons behind wars and captures, but she understood something simple. This woman was alone, scared, and in need of help. "Please," Lucy said, her small voice trembling. Can she stay here? Just for a little while?" Mr. Dawson shook his head, glancing at the approaching soldiers. "Girls, it's not safe. You know that?" May stepped closer to the woman, her tiny hands reaching out instinctively. "She looks sad," she whispered. The woman, for the first time, lifted her head. Her gaze fell on May, and a flicker of surprise softened her expression. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but the girls saw it. She was human. She was frightened, and somehow, without a word, she seemed to understand their hearts. Clara bit her lip, torn between caution and a longing she didn't fully understand. She thought of the empty house, of the mornings without laughter, of the silence that had grown heavier with each passing day. Her mother was gone, yes, but maybe there was a chance to fill some of that emptiness, even in a small way. The officer turned to mount his horse. "Move along, there's no place for her here." But the girls did not move. They stood together, small but determined. Clara straightened, her voice firmer than she expected. "We need a mother," she said softly, almost to herself, but loud enough for the officer and her sisters to hear. Lucy nodded, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. "We do." "Please?" The officer frowned. "That is not your concern, young ladies. Step aside." But the moment had already passed the point of return. The woman in chains, Nayeli, as the girls would later learn her name, looked at them, and something unspoken passed between them. There was recognition, or perhaps understanding, that life could be more than rules and fear. She had been captured, yes, but she was also alive, strong, and capable. The girls' hearts ached for her, and in that shared ache, a plan began to form. Mr. Dawson stepped forward reluctantly. "Girls, it's dangerous. You can't just—" But Clara shook her head, her mind made up. "We can't just leave her. She's like us, alone. We need someone. And maybe she needs us too." The officer glared, unsure how to respond to the courage of children. He tightened his reins and signaled his men. "Let's go," he barked, and the horses moved again, kicking up dust that stung their eyes. The girls watched until the column disappeared over the distant hills. Their hearts pounded with a mix of fear, excitement, and longing. They didn't know how, but they knew they had to find a way to help her. Somehow the empty house, the quiet ranch, and their aching hearts had a new purpose. That night Clara sat by the window, staring at the fading light over the desert. Lucy and May slept fitfully, dreaming of unknown lands and unseen faces. Clara held on to one thought above all others. The woman they had seen, Nayeli, was not just a stranger. She might be the mother they needed, the protector they longed for, and perhaps, in some strange, mysterious way, she might find a home in their hearts as they would in hers. The wind whispered across the plains, carrying the scent of dust and sage. Somewhere beyond the hills, Nayeli was out there, strong and defiant, yet human and vulnerable. And for the first time since their mother had passed, the girls felt a spark of hope. The next morning dawned hot and bright over the Dawson Ranch. The sun climbed slowly over the horizon, casting long shadows across the dry earth and the wooden house that stood at the center of the property. Clara, Lucy, and little May were already awake before the first rooster crowed. Their excitement and anxiety from the day before kept them from sleeping much. Each of them remembered the woman in chains, the sharp, dark eyes that had seemed to see right into them, and they couldn't shake the feeling that their lives were about to change forever. Clara moved quietly through the kitchen, trying not to wake her sisters. She prepared breakfast as carefully as she could, spreading butter on bread and cracking eggs into the pan. Her hands shook slightly, not from fear, but from anticipation. She kept thinking about Nayeli, the Apache woman they had seen yesterday. She didn't know much about her, but something about her courage and quiet strength had left a mark on Clara's heart. Lucy tiptoed into the kitchen, rubbing her eyes. "Do you think she'll come today?" she asked softly, her voice a mixture of hope and worry. Clara shook her head, though a small smile tugged at her lips. "I don't know, but if she does, we have to be ready." May appeared behind Lucy, her small hand clutching the corner of Clara's apron. "I want to see her," she whispered, her wide eyes filled with wonder. "I want her to stay." Their father, Mr. All, Dawson, entered the kitchen, his boots thudding against the wooden floor. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with hands calloused from years of hard work. His face was serious, but there was a softness in his eyes when he looked at his daughters. "Girls," he said, "we need to be careful. This woman, she's not like us. She's been through a lot, and the world outside isn't kind. We can't make choices without thinking." Clara looked up at him, her brown eyes steady. "We know, Pa, but she needs help. And we need her too. Please." Mr. Dawson sighed deeply. He had tried to protect his daughters from danger, but he also knew that their hearts were strong and determined. Finally, he nodded slowly. "All right, we'll do this, but we do it carefully. Understand?" The girls nodded eagerly, barely able to contain their excitement. They helped him prepare the small guest room, laying out clean sheets and blankets. Clara put flowers in a vase, trying to make the room feel welcoming. Lucy arranged the few toys and books that belonged to May, and little May herself placed a small wooden doll on the bed. Each action was filled with hope, as if these small gestures could somehow reach the stranger who would soon enter their home. By mid-morning, the distant sound of hooves announced the arrival of the soldiers again. Clara, Lucy, and May watched from the porch as the men rode up, leading Nayeli between them. Her chains glinted in the sunlight, but her expression was calm and controlled, as though she were prepared for whatever might come next. She lifted her eyes toward the Dawson house, and for a moment their gaze met. Clara felt a shiver run down her spine. There was a strength in Nayeli's eyes, but also a hint of vulnerability, a quiet plea that did not need words. Mr. Dawson stepped forward as the soldiers dismounted. "We'll take her in," he said, his voice firm but respectful. The officer in charge looked skeptical. "Make sure she doesn't escape," And remember, she is under military custody. Any trouble and you will be held responsible." "Yes, sir, Mr." Dawson replied. He turned to his daughters.
"Girls, stay back. Let's see that she's safe first."
Naeli was led inside. She moved carefully, every step deliberate. Her hands were still bound, and she did not speak a word. The girls watched silently, fascinated. She looked taller than they expected, with long, dark hair falling in waves around her shoulders. Her clothes were simple and worn, and her face carried a quiet dignity that commanded attention without demanding it. Clara stepped forward cautiously, offering a soft voice. "Hello, my name is Clara. These are my sisters, Lucy and May. We want you to feel safe here." Naeli's eyes flicked toward Clara, then Lucy and May. She studied them silently for a long moment before nodding slightly, almost imperceptibly. She did not speak, but the girls felt a small connection forming, a bridge built not with words, but with shared understanding. Mr. Dawson finally spoke, breaking the silence. "We'll take her chains off while she stays inside. She will eat, rest, and then we'll figure out what comes next." The chains were heavy, and when they fell away with a clatter, Naeli flexed her wrists, testing the freedom of her hands. She did not flinch or look angry. Instead, she moved with careful grace, as if every motion had meaning. The girls watched in awe. They had never seen anyone so quiet, so strong, and yet so gentle in her movements. Breakfast was prepared, and Naeli was given a small plate of food. She ate slowly, with deliberate care, observing the family around her. Clara, Lucy, and May sat nearby, hoping for any sign of approval or warmth. Naeli's eyes occasionally met theirs, and in those brief moments the girls felt a spark of hope. She was not yet speaking, but she was present, and that was enough. The morning passed with small, cautious steps. Clara showed Naeli the bedrooms, explaining where she could rest and where she could wash. Lucy brought her water in towels, her curiosity uncontainable. May simply followed her, offering small smiles and soft words, as if hoping to coax a smile from the quiet woman. By afternoon, Naeli began to move with more confidence. She explored the kitchen, inspecting the simple tools and utensils. Clara watched her carefully, noting the skill in her hands, the way she handled objects with precision, the way she seemed to understand the space around her. It was clear she was not only capable, but also wise in ways the girls could not yet comprehend. The girls decided to talk among themselves when Naeli stepped outside to see the small garden behind the house. The sun was lower now, casting a warm glow over the dusty land. Clara turned to Lucy and May. "She's, different. Strong, quiet, and smart. We need to be patient. She may not trust us yet, but I think she will." Lucy nodded.
She helped me pick some weeds. And she smiled at May when she handed her the water.
"That's a start, right?" May clapped her small hands. "She's nice. I like her." Even Mr. Dawson was beginning to see it. He watched from the porch, noting the careful way Naeli moved, the quiet authority in her gestures, and the calm determination in her eyes. Perhaps, he thought, she could help them not just with the work of the ranch, but with the hearts of the children who had lost their mother. As the afternoon wore on, Naeli began to respond in small ways. She pointed to a chair, gesturing for the girls to sit. She showed them how to water the plants without breaking the fragile stems. She did not yet speak, but each motion communicated care, attention, and patience. By evening, a sense of peace had settled over the Dawson household. The girls helped Naeli prepare a small meal for the family. It was simple food: cornbread, beans, and some vegetables. but it was made with care, and it was shared with quiet gratitude. For the first time since their mother had died, the house felt alive with a different kind of energy, a calm, steady, and hopeful rhythm. That night, the girls gathered in their bedroom, whispering excitedly about the day. Clara lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the woman they had brought into their home. Lucy hugged her knees, while May rested her head on a pillow, smiling softly. "She didn't speak much," Lucy said, "but I think she likes us." Clara nodded. "I think so too. She's different, but good. We just have to be patient. Maybe she can help us feel like our mom is still here in some way." May yawned and snuggled into her blankets. "I hope she stays. I like her already." Outside, the desert was quiet. The wind rustled the dry grasses, carrying with it the scent of sage and dust. The ranch, which had felt lonely and silent, now seemed full of possibility. A small, unspoken promise had been made between the Dawson girls and Nayeli, a promise of trust, patience, and perhaps the beginnings of a family that stretched beyond blood and names. And for the first time in a long while, Clara felt a small spark of hope in her heart. Maybe, just maybe, things could get better. The next morning, the sun rose over the Dawson ranch like a golden promise. Clara, Lucy, and little May were already awake, their hearts filled with curiosity and excitement. Yesterday had been a day of firsts. The first time Nayeli had stepped into their home, the first time she had eaten with them, and the first time they had felt hope again. Today, the girls were determined to make it even better. Clara tiptoed into the kitchen first, carrying a basket of eggs she had collected from the hens. The air smelled faintly of sun-warmed wood and dust, a smell that had become comforting over the years. Nayeli was already in the room, standing quietly near the counter, her dark hair falling across her shoulders. She looked out the window at the rising sun, her expression calm but thoughtful, as if she were measuring every detail of the house and the land beyond. Clara set the basket down carefully. "Good morning, Nayeli," she said softly, not wanting to startle her.
"Would you like some breakfast?"
Nayeli glanced at her, and for the first time, she nodded. She moved to the table, her steps measured and graceful. The girls watched, fascinated, as she sat down and accepted a plate with quiet dignity. She did not speak, but the gentle way she held herself, the care with which she ate, communicated respect and presence. Lucy and May joined Clara at the table, eager to help. Lucy poured a cup of milk, while May arranged napkins and utensils. Each small act was a gesture of friendship, and Nayeli noticed them. Her dark eyes softened briefly, a small sign that the walls around her heart were beginning to lower. After breakfast, Clara suggested they teach Nayeli some of their daily chores. "We can show her how we take care of the animals," she said. "She might like to help us." Nayeli tilted her head slightly but did not refuse. She followed the girls out to the barn, moving carefully between the horses, the cows, and the small pens for chickens and goats. She seemed aware of every step, every movement, as if she were learning the rhythm of the ranch without needing instructions. Lucy, ever curious, asked, "Do you know how to feed the chickens?" Nayeli smiled faintly, a small curve of her lips, and gestured for Lucy to follow her. She picked up a handful of feed and scattered it for the chickens, showing Lucy how to do it so that none of the little birds were left out. Lucy's eyes widened in admiration. "Wow, you're really good at this," she exclaimed. Nayeli's dark eyes met Lucy's, and for the first time she made a sound, a soft, almost musical hum. It was not a word, but it was a signal, a bridge that connected her to the girls. They laughed softly, feeling a new kind of closeness that was growing slowly, gently, like the first rays of dawn across the desert. May, who was smaller and a little timid, followed Nayeli as she moved to the goats. Nayeli bent down, showing May how to brush the animals carefully, how to check that they had enough water, and how to speak to them softly so they would not panic. May giggled as one of the goats nudged her hand, and Nayeli's eyes twinkled with amusement. It was the first real smile the girls had seen from her, and it made their hearts swell with hope. The morning passed with a rhythm of work and quiet companionship. Clara taught Nayeli how to milk the cows. Lucy showed her how to collect eggs without breaking them, and May helped with sweeping the barn. Each task was simple, but in them, the girls felt a growing bond. Nayeli's presence began to feel natural, almost as if she had always belonged. By midday, the sun was high and hot, and they returned to the house for water and a brief rest. Clara suggested they sit in the shade on the porch. Nayeli accepted, sitting quietly while the girls chattered about their lives and their dreams. Clara told her stories about their mother, about the garden she had once tended, and the songs she had sung. Lucy shared her fascination with animals, stars, and the far-off lands she longed to see. May simply listened, occasionally asking questions and giggling at the small, silly stories. Nayeli listened too, her dark eyes moving from one sister to another. Though she did not speak, she nodded, smiled faintly, and occasionally gestured with her hands. Slowly the girls began to understand her language. Small movements, looks, and gestures that express care, agreement, or curiosity. They realized that communication was about more than words. It was about attention, patience, and understanding. In the afternoon, Clara suggested they go to the small creek nearby. The girls hoped to teach Nayeli how to gather water safely, how to find clean stones for washing, and how to enjoy the cool water without slipping on the mossy edges. Nayeli followed, walking with quiet assurance. The creek was shallow and sparkling, and the sun danced on the surface of the water, making it seem almost magical. Clara showed Nayeli how to use a small bucket to collect water, and Lucy demonstrated how to rinse freshly washed clothes in the flowing stream. May, laughing, splashed water at them all, and Nayeli's hand moved in a graceful gesture to shield herself. But then she laughed softly, a rare and precious sound that made the girls laugh too. It was a moment of joy, simple but profound, and it filled the air with warmth and life. When the chores were done, they sat on the creek bank, their feet dangling in the water. Clara leaned back on her hands, watching Nayeli. She thought about how quiet and strong she seemed, and how different she was from anyone they had ever met. But she also realized that Nayeli had something the girls needed: the ability to protect, teach, and care in ways that words could not always explain. Lucy turned to Nayeli, holding up a small piece of bread. "Do you want some?" she asked softly. Nayeli hesitated, then took it gently, nodding in thanks. It was a small gesture, but to the girls it meant everything. They were beginning to build trust, step by step, moment by moment. By evening they returned to the house, tired but happy. The sun was setting, painting the desert sky in shades of gold, pink, and purple. Clara helped Nayeli wash up, showing her the basin and the small cloths. Nayeli moved carefully, still cautious but willing to follow. The girls realized that trust was growing, but it would take time. Nayeli had been through so much, and her silence was not empty. It was a shield she carried carefully. Dinner was quiet at first. Nayeli ate slowly, her eyes often on the girls, sometimes on Mr. Dawson and sometimes on the floor, but she did not refuse food, and she did not seem afraid. By the end of the meal, she even gestured for a refill of water for Lucy and May, a small act of care that made the girls feel as if they had made a breakthrough. After dinner, the girls gathered in their bedroom, talking excitedly about the day. "She's amazing," Lucy said. "She knows so much, and she's so careful with everything." Clara nodded. "She is. And she's kind, too, even if she doesn't say it with words yet. I think she could really be like a mother to us." May, cuddled in her blanket, smiled sleepily. "I like her. I want her to stay forever." Even Mr. Dawson, sitting quietly on the porch, felt a warmth in his chest. He had seen many challenges in his life, but watching his daughters interact with Nayeli brought a sense of hope he hadn't felt in months. Perhaps this woman, who had been a stranger, who had once been a captive, could bring more than help with chores. Perhaps she could bring care, protection, and love, things that had been missing since his wife passed. As the night fell over the desert, the ranch was quiet again. But it was not the lonely silence of before. There was a new rhythm in the air, a sense of life and hope. Nayeli slept in the small room the girls had prepared for her, the faintest smile on her face as she drifted into dreams. Clara, Lucy, and May lay in their beds, whispering softly to each other, imagining the days to come. And in the stillness, Clara thought of the future. She thought of the work, the challenges, and the dangers they might face. But she also thought of the possibilities, the lessons Nayeli could teach them, the protection she could offer, and the love that might grow quietly, patiently, between them all. For the first time in a long while, the Dawson girls felt a sense of belonging. Their family, once broken and incomplete, was beginning to heal in ways they could not yet fully understand. Nayeli, a woman from a world so different from their own, had entered their lives not with force or demand, but with strength, patience, and a quiet kindness that promised to change everything. And with that thought, Clara, Lucy, and May finally fell asleep, hearts full of hope, the desert wind carrying whispers of a future that, while uncertain, was beginning to feel like home. The next morning, the desert sky was a pale blue, and the sun rose slowly over the Dawson Ranch. Everything seemed calm at first. The chickens clucked softly, the horses nickered in the barn, and the wind whispered through the dry grasses. But there was an uneasy tension in the air, one that Clara felt deep in her chest. Something about the quiet made her restless, and she couldn't shake the feeling that trouble was coming. The girls were up early as usual. Clara helped Lucy and May dress, while Nayeli moved quietly in the background, helping with small tasks. She had begun to learn their routines, carrying herself with calm efficiency. The girls watched her with admiration and respect, noticing the small gestures of care she made, like adjusting a chair so it wouldn't wobble or brushing dust off the counter. Suddenly, a sharp sound reached their ears, the unmistakable clatter of hooves approaching at speed. Clara froze, her heart pounding. "Not again," she whispered. The girls hurried to the porch, peering across the dusty fields. A group of soldiers was riding toward the ranch, their uniforms gleaming in the morning sun, and they carried an air of authority that made Clara's stomach tighten. "Stay calm, girls," Mr. Dawson said, stepping onto the porch. His voice was steady, but Clara could see the tension in his shoulders. "We'll see what they want. Nayeli." "Stay inside for now." Nayeli, standing silently in the doorway, met Clara's eyes with a brief nod. She understood without words. Her dark eyes were steady, but there was a flicker of alertness that told Clara she was ready for whatever might come. The soldiers rode up and dismounted. The officer in charge, a tall man with a stern expression, called out,
"Mr. Dawson, we have orders to bring Nayeli back."
"She is under military custody and must come with us immediately." Clara felt a wave of panic. The girls had come to trust Nayeli, and she had become a part of their lives. They couldn't imagine the house or their lives without her. Lucy's hands trembled as she clutched May's arm, while May herself hid behind Clara's legs, eyes wide with fear. "Please," Clara said, her voice shaking but firm. "She's not going anywhere." The officer's face hardened. "That is not your decision, young lady."
We have strict orders. Resistance will not be tolerated.
Nayeli stepped forward, her posture calm but commanding. Clara felt a shiver run through her. Nayeli did not speak, but she lifted her head, meeting the officer's gaze without fear. She gestured subtly to the girls, a quiet signal that they were not to be harmed. It was the first time Clara truly understood the strength hidden behind Nayeli's silence. Mr. Dawson raised his hands. "We will not fight you," he said carefully. "But she is a guest in my home. I cannot let you take her by force while the girls are here." The officer hesitated. He was used to obedience, not defiance from civilians, especially not from children. The tension hung in the air like a heavy cloud, and for a moment, no one spoke. Nayeli's dark eyes scanned the surroundings, calculating, observing. Clara could feel the power in her presence, a quiet courage that steadied her own nerves. Suddenly, Nayeli moved quickly, grabbing a small bag from the corner of the porch. She handed it to Clara, a simple gesture that meant she had thought ahead. Clara caught the bag, understanding without words that Nayeli had prepared for this moment. The officer's eyes narrowed, but before he could act, Nayeli stepped back calmly, her presence commanding attention. Clara took a deep breath. "We'll talk to you," she said softly, her voice shaking but determined. "We won't fight, but we won't let her go while we're here. She is part of our family now." The officer's jaw tightened. He signaled to his men, but Nayeli's gaze was unwavering. Clara felt a strange mixture of fear and admiration. Nayeli was not threatening, they could see that, but the calm authority in her movements made it clear she was capable of defending herself and the girls if needed. Lucy whispered to May, "She's so brave. I wish I could be like her." May clutched Lucy's hand. "She's like a mother to us," she said softly. The officer finally spoke again. "You are making a mistake. The orders are clear. She belongs to the military now. You cannot protect her here forever." Clara shook her head. "We'll protect her as long as we can. She's not just a prisoner. She's part of our family, and we won't let you take her without a fight. A real fight, not one with weapons." For a moment, the tension seemed unbearable. The soldiers shifted, the horses stamped the ground, and the girls held their breath. Nayeli, standing a few feet behind Clara, moved with grace and quiet confidence, signaling with small gestures that she would protect them, but also that she trusted their judgment. Then, in a sudden motion, Nayeli stepped forward, placing herself between the officer and the girls. Her dark eyes were steady, her expression calm. She did not raise her voice, but Clara could feel the force of her presence. The soldiers, trained to recognize authority, paused. Nayeli's courage was undeniable. Clara, sensing an opportunity, spoke again. "She's not going anywhere today. You'll have to leave and come back another time. We'll prepare then. But for now, she stays here." The officer's face reddened with frustration. He glanced at his men, then back at Nayeli. After a tense silence, he finally nodded. "Very well. We will return later, but remember, this is not over. She must come with us eventually." With that, the soldiers mounted their horses and rode away, kicking up clouds of dust that swirled across the dry earth. The girls watched until the last horse disappeared over the horizon, then sank to the ground, trembling with relief. Clara hugged Lucy and May tightly, "It's all right," she whispered. "She's safe for now." Nayeli stepped closer, her presence calm and protective. She placed a hand lightly on Clara's shoulder, a silent reassurance that everything would be okay. For the first time, Clara felt a true sense of safety, not because the danger had passed, but because they had Nayeli with them. The rest of the day was quiet, but the girls could feel the tension lingering in the air. Every shadow, every distant sound made them alert. Clara spent the afternoon showing Nayeli the small ways to secure the house and ranch in case soldiers returned. Lucy helped gather firewood while May collected flowers to place on the table. Every task became a lesson in care, patience, and vigilance. By evening, the girls had learned something important. Protection was not just about strength. It was about awareness, preparation, and trust. Nayeli had taught them this without speaking, showing them how to move quietly, observe closely, and act decisively when needed. The girls felt stronger because of her, as if her courage had rubbed off on them. Dinner was quiet but comforting. The girls shared stories of their day, laughing softly at small mistakes and triumphs. Nayeli sat at the table, observing, occasionally gesturing to acknowledge their efforts. The simple act of sharing a meal felt like an act of defiance against the outside world, a small victory that strengthened their bond. That night, the girls gathered in their bedroom, whispering excitedly yet cautiously. "Do you think they'll come back soon?" Lucy asked, her voice trembling slightly. Clara shook her head. "I don't know, but we'll be ready."
Nayeli has taught us so much today. We can face whatever comes next, together.
May hugged her small doll tightly. "I'm not scared if she's here."
"She'll protect us." Clara smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude and hope. Nayeli had come into their lives quietly, with patience and courage, and in doing so she had shown them how to stand tall in the face of fear. The ranch, once a place of quiet sorrow, now felt alive with purpose and determination. Outside, the desert wind blew softly through the night, carrying the scent of sage and dust. The stars twinkled overhead, silent witnesses to the bond that had grown between Nayeli and the Dawson girls. Though challenges lay ahead, and the world beyond the ranch was unpredictable and often harsh, they had found strength in one another, a strength that could not be broken by chains, orders, or fear. And with that thought, Clara, Lucy, and May fell asleep, hearts full of courage, ready to face whatever the next day would bring, with Nayeli by their side as their protector, guide, and mother in all but name. The morning sun rose gently over the Dawson Ranch, painting the desert in warm shades of gold and orange. The air smelled of fresh dust, dry grass, and the faint scent of flowers the girls had planted weeks ago. Everything seemed calm, but Clara, Lucy, and May moved quickly, sensing that today would be different. Their hearts were full of hope, determination, and the quiet knowledge that their lives had changed forever since Nayeli had arrived. Clara woke first, as she usually did, and peeked into the small room where Nayeli slept. She could see the woman lying quietly, her dark hair spread across the pillow, her face serene. For a moment, Clara simply watched her, feeling a deep gratitude. Nayeli had become more than a guest. She was a presence of calm and strength in their home. She had already taught the girls so much about courage, patience, and quiet protection, but Clara knew there was still more to learn. The girls dressed quickly and hurried downstairs. Nayeli was already in the kitchen, preparing breakfast with care and precision. Her hands moved gracefully, handling each bowl, each loaf of bread, with careful attention. Clara noticed the small ways she adjusted the chairs so that the girls could sit comfortably, the way she placed the plates neatly, and the way she smiled faintly when she saw them watching. Lucy and May helped with small tasks, and together they created a rhythm in the morning. The house felt alive, warm, and safe, a sharp contrast to the quiet emptiness that had filled it for so long. It was clear to all of them that Naeli's presence had changed the ranch, not just in work, but in heart. After breakfast, the girls helped Naeli gather eggs, feed the chickens, and water the small garden. This had become their daily routine, a rhythm that brought comfort and connection. But today, Clara noticed something different. Naeli moved with more ease, more openness, as if she were beginning to trust not only the girls but the safety of the ranch itself. When they finished their chores, Clara suggested they go for a walk to the nearby hills, a place where they could stretch their legs and breathe freely. Naeli agreed with a simple nod, and together they walked, the girls chattering about small adventures and stories from the past, while Naeli listened quietly, sometimes smiling, sometimes gesturing in ways that expressed understanding without words. Clara realized that trust had grown between them. Naeli no longer moved with the cautious watchfulness of a stranger. She laughed softly at Lucy's jokes, gently guided May when she stumbled over rocks, and pointed out hidden flowers along the path that the girls had never noticed. Every small gesture was a lesson in care, observation, and respect for the land they all loved. As the sun climbed higher, they reached a small plateau overlooking the ranch. The view stretched endlessly across the plains, the mountains far in the distance, and the sky a brilliant, clear blue. Clara sat down, feeling the wind in her hair, and looked at Naeli. "You know," Clara said softly, "I think you've taught us more than we could ever imagine. Not just how to care for the animals or the garden, but how to be brave, how to take care of each other, and how to feel safe even when the world outside isn't." Naeli's dark eyes met hers, and for the first time she spoke in a soft, clear voice. "You are brave," she said, her accent gentle but strong. "You have courage in your hearts even when you don't know it. You have protected each other, and you have protected me. That is strength." Clara felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes. "But you protect us too," she said. "You've shown us how to stand tall, how to face fear, and how to care for one another." Naeli nodded, a faint smile touching her lips. "And that is what family does," she said. The girls were silent for a moment, letting the words sink in. Family. It was a word that had felt incomplete since their mother had passed. But now, standing on the plateau with Naeli, it felt whole again. They understood that family was not only blood, but trust, courage, and love that grew through shared days and quiet moments. When they returned to the ranch, the air was cooler, the shadows longer. Clara helped Naeli tend to the horses, Lucy gathered firewood, and May fed the chickens. The day passed in peaceful activity, but there was an unspoken sense that something important was settling into place. Naeli had become not just a helper, but a guide, a protector, and a presence of comfort in their lives. As evening approached, the distant sound of hooves reminded them that the soldiers might still return. But Clara noticed something different this time. She was not afraid. Naeli had taught them vigilance and awareness, but also the courage to stand together. They would face whatever came with calm preparation and trust in each other. Sure enough, the sound of hooves grew louder, and a small group of soldiers appeared on the horizon. But this time, Clara and Naeli were ready. The girls stayed close together, while Naeli moved forward calmly, her posture confident and strong. The officer in charge dismounted and called out, "Mr. Ragstad Dawson, we have orders to take Naeli into custody. She must return with us immediately." Clara stepped forward, her voice firm but respectful. "She is part of our family," she said. We will not let her go without a proper discussion. She belongs here, with us, for now. Nayeli stood beside Clara, silent but commanding. Her eyes met the officers, and there was no fear in them, only calm authority. The soldiers hesitated. They could see the bond between Nayeli and the girls, the quiet strength that protected not just the ranch, but the hearts of those within it. After a long pause, the officer finally spoke. We cannot force her. She is not leaving today, but the orders remain. She must return eventually. Clara nodded, understanding the truth in his words. We know, but today she stays. And until that day comes, we will care for her, as a family. The soldiers left, their hooves stirring the dust, and the ranch fell quiet again. But the feeling was not fear this time. It was peace. The girls hugged Nayeli tightly, feeling the warmth and security of her presence. Nayeli placed her hands gently on each of them, and for the first time, she spoke words that carried love and certainty. You are my family now, she said, and I will protect you, guide you, and care for you, as any mother would. The girls' hearts swelled with joy. For the first time since their mother had passed, they felt truly safe, truly loved, and truly whole. Nayeli had become more than a helper, more than a guide. She had become their mother in every way that mattered. That night, the family gathered in the living room, sharing stories, laughter, and dreams. The sun had set, leaving a blanket of stars over the desert. Clara, Lucy, May, and Nayeli sat together, feeling the quiet strength of their bond. Mr. Dawson joined them, his heart full of gratitude and relief. For days that followed, the ranch continued with its work, each day filled with lessons, laughter, and small adventures. Nayeli taught the girls how to care for the land, how to tend animals, and how to move through life with courage and calm. The girls taught her their ways too, their songs, their stories, and their laughter. Together they created a home full of warmth, trust, and love. Over time, the Dawson Ranch became a place where the past sorrows were slowly replaced by hope. The desert, once quiet and lonely, was now alive with voices, movement, and life. Nayeli had found safety and purpose, while the girls had found a mother's love that they had thought was lost forever. And as the sun set over the distant mountains, Clara thought of the journey they had all taken, the fear, the courage, and the trust that had grown slowly, step by step. Life was not always easy, and challenges would come again, but they were no longer alone. They had each other, and in that bond, they had found strength, protection, and love. The Dawson girls knew that their family was different now, not bound only by blood, but by choice, courage, and care. Nayeli, the Apache woman who had once been a stranger and a captive, had become their mother, their guide, and their protector. Together, they faced the future with hope, hearts full of gratitude, and the quiet certainty that family was what they made it, and love was the strongest bond of all. The desert wind blew softly over the ranch, carrying the scent of sage, dust, and promise. The stars twinkled overhead, and in the quiet night the Dawson family slept peacefully, knowing that they had found a home in each other, a family built on trust, courage, and love that would last forever.